There comes a point in every person's life when comfort begins to rot. You start to feel the weight of illusions, the soft lies you were taught to believe since childhood, the ones that whisper, good things happen to good people. Hard work always pays off. The world is fair. But as you grow older, as the scars multiply and silence grows heavier, you realize that those promises were never rules. They were wishes. And wishes, no matter how beautiful, don't survive reality for long. The truth is not warm. It doesn't hug you or reassure you. It cuts. It exposes. It forces you to see the world without filters. And that's why most people avoid it. They'd rather stay wrapped in illusions, living in a dream that feels safe, than wake up to a reality that demands strength. But for those who choose to wake up, something incredible happens. Life stops being a random series of disappointments and starts becoming a training ground. Every betrayal, every loss, every failure stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like instruction. You begin to understand that reality isn't cruel, it's honest. And if you can handle its honesty, you can handle anything. The ancient Stoics lived by this principle. They didn't romanticize pain, but they didn't run from it either. They faced life head-on, without complaint, without denial, because they understood that the only way to conquer chaos is to stop pretending it doesn't exist. They taught that freedom begins when you stop negotiating with lies. And the first negotiation most people make is with themselves. The deal that says, if I just work hard, if I stay nice, if I do everything right, life will reward me. But life doesn't make deals. It mirrors your strength, not your wishes. And to see this clearly, you need to burn away every comforting illusion until only truth remains. That's what these 8 lessons are. They aren't meant to make you feel good. They're meant to make you strong. The kind of strong that doesn't crumble when life stops playing fair. The kind of strong that can't be manipulated by charm, guilt, or fear. The kind that makes you dangerously smart. Not because you know everything, but because you finally see things for what they really are. If you're ready to stop hiding behind comforting lies, and if you're ready to face the truths most people never dare to confront, then you're in the right place. So take a breath, let go of everything you think you know, and let's begin. For centuries, humans have loved to believe they are rational creatures. We like to think that every choice we make is guided by reason, that we weigh the facts, consider the pros and cons, and then make smart, calculated decisions. But if that were true, the world would look very different. The reality is that most of our choices are emotional first, logical second. The reasoning comes after, not before. We don't buy things because we need them. We buy them because they make us feel something. We don't fall in love because it's practical. We fall because it fills a void. We don't argue because we care about truth. We argue because we need to feel right. Emotion is the current beneath every human action. Logic is just the explanation we build afterward to make our choices sound noble. That doesn't make emotion bad. In fact, it's what gives life color and meaning. But when emotion goes unchecked, it becomes the reason people destroy relationships, sabotage opportunities, and repeat the same mistakes again and again. Think about the last time you made a decision you regretted. Maybe you sent a message in anger, bought something you couldn't afford, or trusted someone you shouldn't have. You probably told yourself you were acting logically, but deep down it was emotion steering the wheel. The Stoics understood this long before psychology existed. They saw that emotion isn't the enemy, impulsiveness is. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. What he meant was simple. You cannot control what you feel, but you can control what you do next. That's the difference between emotional chaos and emotional intelligence. People who are ruled by emotion react instantly. They lash out, give in, withdraw, or explode. People who master emotion still feel everything, but they pause before they act. That pause is everything. It's the space between stimulus and response, the brief silence where power lives. In that silence, you decide who you want to be. Will you let your feelings control you, or will you use them as information to make a better move? Most people never develop that skill. They believe that following your heart is always noble, even when it leads them into disaster. But wisdom means knowing that feelings are not facts. They're signals, temporary, shifting, and often misleading. If you treat every feeling as truth, you'll live in constant reaction to things you don't understand. To become mentally strong, you must learn to observe your emotions without obeying them. Ask yourself, why do I feel this way? What triggered it? What outcome do I actually want? That self-questioning turns emotion into insight instead of chaos. And when you begin to observe emotion, in yourself and in others, you'll start to see the hidden structure of human behavior. In conflict, people aren't defending logic, they're defending pride. When someone argues louder, it's rarely because they have better evidence. It's because they feel unheard or disrespected. When someone acts cold, it's not always indifference. Sometimes it's fear in disguise. Once you can see these patterns, you stop wasting energy trying to win arguments or prove points. You stop reacting to tone and start listening to motive. That's when you gain control. Because here's the secret. Understanding emotion doesn't just help you manage yourself, it helps you navigate everyone else. It lets you step out of the storm while everyone else is still trying to fight the wind. If someone yells, you stay calm. If someone manipulates, you recognize it instantly. If someone tries to provoke you, you smile because you already understand what's driving them. That is emotional mastery. It's not about being numb, it's about being aware. You feel everything, but you're moved by nothing you don't choose to be moved by. Once you reach that level, people can't easily control you. They can't guilt you, scare you, or bait you into impulsive choices. You start operating from clarity, not chaos. And that's what makes you powerful. Not in a loud, aggressive way, but in a quiet, unshakable way. This transforms the way you deal with life. You no longer waste energy reacting to every mood or insult. You stop letting temporary emotions make permanent decisions. And slowly, you begin to notice that your mind feels cleaner, lighter, like a room finally cleared of clutter. That's what the Stoics trained for, not coldness, but clarity. Because when you master your emotional landscape, you stop being a prisoner to your impulses and start becoming the architect of your actions. So the first ruthless lesson is this. People are not driven by logic. They are driven by emotion, by fear, by pride, by love, by insecurity, by the hunger to be seen. But the few who learn to understand those emotions, in themselves and in others, begin to move differently. They stop fighting the waves and start surfing them. That's when your intelligence becomes dangerous. Because now, you're not just reacting to life, you're directing it. People often talk about kindness as if it's a pure thing, an act untouched by personal desire. But look a little closer, and you'll see something deeper at play. Every human choice, from the grandest sacrifice to the smallest favor, carries a trace of self-interest. It might be comfort, it might be pride, it might be the need to be seen as good. But there is always something the person gains, some emotional currency that makes the action worthwhile to them. This doesn't make humanity corrupt. It makes it understandable.
The idea that people should act without any self-interest sounds noble, yet it ignores how the mind actually works. We move toward pleasure and away from pain. We seek belonging, recognition, or peace. Every instinct, even the ones that seem altruistic, is wired around survival of body, mind, or identity. Imagine you're helping a friend through a hard time. Yes, you care about them, but you also help because it aligns with who you believe yourself to be. You want to live in a world where loyalty matters, where compassion still exists. So you act according to that belief, and it reinforces your sense of integrity. That reinforcement is the hidden reward. Now think of the times someone disappointed you. Maybe they backed out of a promise, or didn't return a favor, or suddenly changed once their needs were met. You felt hurt because you believed they were acting selflessly. But in truth, they were acting according to their own internal logic, just like you do. Their priorities shifted and their behavior followed. Once you understand this, life starts making sense. Disappointment fades, replaced by clarity. You stop taking betrayal personally because you realize it was never about you. It was about what they needed in that moment. This awareness is not meant to turn you into a cynic. Cynicism says, people are selfish, so trust no one. Wisdom says, people act from self-interest, so learn to see it and work with it. That difference is everything. Because when you accept that everyone, including you, is motivated by personal benefit, you gain the power to navigate relationships with strategy instead of naivety. Let's take an example. Someone gives you advice that feels generous and insightful. But ask yourself, what do they gain if you follow it? Maybe they'll feel validated for being right. Maybe they're building a subtle form of influence. Maybe they simply want to see you succeed because your success affirms their own worldview. Whatever the motive, it's rarely free of self-interest, and that's okay. When you stop demanding purity from people, you stop being disappointed by their humanity. You learn to collaborate with it instead. The Stoics were masters at this kind of clear seeing. They didn't assume the world owed them fairness or virtue. They observed human behavior without judgment, like scientists watching the tides. They knew that understanding motives was not about manipulation, it was about alignment. If someone seeks power, you don't shame them for it. You decide whether your goals can coexist with theirs. If someone seeks comfort, you decide whether you are willing to provide it in exchange for something you value. This is not coldness, it's awareness. You stop playing emotional chess blindfolded. Carl Jung once wrote that everything which irritates us in others can lead us to understanding ourselves. The things we dislike in people are often reflections of drives we haven't owned within us. When you recognize the self-interest in others, you also begin to see your own more clearly. Maybe you get angry when someone takes credit for your work. Why? Because your self-interest, your desire for recognition, was challenged. Maybe you feel betrayed when a friend grows distant. Why? Because your self-interest, your need for closeness, wasn't met. When you start analyzing these emotions, not with blame, but with curiosity, you begin to understand the architecture of your mind. You start to see that self-interest is not a flaw, but a compass. It shows you what you value, what you fear, what you're willing to fight for. The danger lies not in having self-interest, but in pretending you don't. Denial breeds confusion. Honesty breeds control. Once you own your motives, you can align them with your values. You can choose paths where your self-interest also creates value for others. That's the foundation of every lasting partnership, every strong team, every real friendship. It's the alignment of benefit, not the illusion of selflessness. In practical life, this understanding saves you endless frustration. At work, you stop expecting loyalty from colleagues whose incentives push them elsewhere. In relationships, you stop demanding unconditional support from people who are fighting their own private battles. You start to read reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. And something fascinating happens when you do this. You become calmer. Disappointment loses its sting because expectation loses its power. You see through flattery, through guilt, through emotional games, not with bitterness, but with quiet comprehension. Imagine standing in a crowded room where everyone is speaking, bargaining, performing. You're the only one listening between the words, noticing the subtle exchanges of validation and need. That's what awareness feels like. You no longer need to shout. You simply understand. This is the second ruthless lesson. Everyone acts in their own self-interest, not because people are evil, but because they're human, because survival, whether physical, emotional, or social, requires it. The moment you stop fighting this truth, you become free from resentment. And when you start working with it instead of against it, you become influential. Because while most people are still reacting to motives they can't see, you'll be several moves ahead, calm and precise. It's not manipulation. It's awareness refined into strategy. And awareness, when practiced long enough, becomes wisdom. There's a reason mirrors make people uneasy. Not because of what they show, but because of what they reveal when you look too long. Most people can't face their reflection without quickly turning away. They don't want to meet the version of themselves that hides beneath reputation and routine. Human beings crave stories more than accuracy. Each of us builds a private narrative. I'm a good person. I'm doing my best. I know who I am. That story keeps the world predictable. It keeps the ego safe. But the moment truth walks in, the story trembles.
The truth isn't polite. It doesn't care about your comfort, your excuses, or the hours you've spent defending an image. It stands there, silent and unwavering, until you acknowledge it. When someone points out a flaw you've ignored, your body reacts like it's under attack. Your heart races. Your mind scrambles for defense. You justify, you explain, you deflect, anything to protect the identity you built. That's not weakness, that's biology. The brain treats ego threats like survival threats. But growth begins the moment you resist that reflex. When you can sit in discomfort long enough to ask, "Is this true?" instead of, "How do I escape this?" that's when transformation starts. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. He would write pages of brutal self-analysis. No audience, no applause, just truth. He listed his flaws, his anger, his pride, his distractions, not to punish himself, but to refine himself. He knew that honesty is a form of strength training. Most people never reach that stage. They prefer echo chambers over mirrors, friends who agree, feeds that flatter, jobs that distract. But the more you hide from truth, the more it owns you. Denial doesn't erase weakness, it preserves it. Real maturity is measured by how much truth you can tolerate without running. When someone criticizes you, can you listen without collapsing? When life exposes your limits, can you accept them without shame? When you notice a recurring failure, can you analyze it without self-hate? This is what self-awareness looks like in practice. Not constant confidence, but constant curiosity. You stop asking, "How can I prove I'm right?" and start asking, "What am I missing?" That question alone separates wisdom from ignorance. Because while pride argues, truth investigates. Think of truth as fire. If you touch it carelessly, it burns. But if you learn to stand near it, it forges you. It melts the false layers until only what's solid remains. Every person who has ever grown beyond mediocrity has faced this fire. They've felt the sting of self-honesty and stayed with it. They've chosen reflection over distraction, humility over validation. And that choice, repeated enough times, builds an unshakable mind. So, the third ruthless lesson is this. Most people can't handle the truth about themselves. Not because they're weak, but because they confuse criticism with rejection. They haven't learned the truth isn't an enemy. It's a mirror that shows the path forward. The day you stop fearing your reflection is the day you stop being controlled by it. You become adaptable, open, and hard to offend. Because there's nothing left inside you that truth can destroy, only things it can refine. That's real power. Here's the paradox of progress. The higher you rise, the smaller your circle becomes.
Not because you push people away, but because your growth confronts their stagnation. Your success acts like a spotlight. It illuminates their unrealized potential, their silent doubts, their unfulfilled dreams. And not everyone wants to stand in that light. In the beginning, people cheer for you. They love the idea of your ambition because it's still harmless, still hypothetical. But the moment you start achieving what they only talk about, the air changes. Their smiles tighten. Their compliments grow thinner. Suddenly, your wins feel like their losses. Understand this. Envy is rarely loud. It hides behind politeness, behind jokes, behind distant congratulations. But you'll feel it in the subtle shift of tone, in the way conversations shorten, in the invitations that stop coming. This is one of life's harsher lessons. When you grow, you outgrow. You evolve beyond certain dynamics, and not everyone wants to evolve with you. Most people claim they want others to succeed. What they really mean is, as long as it doesn't remind me that I haven't. That's not evil. It's human insecurity at work. The Stoics warned against expecting universal approval. They said that praise and blame are just noises of the crowd, neither proof nor punishment of your worth. What matters is whether your direction remains aligned with your values, not with public opinion. So when success brings friction, don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't dim your light hoping their eyes will adjust. Let them squint. Your job is to grow, not to be approved for growing. If people turn cold, let them. If they criticize, listen for anything useful and discard the rest. Resentment is their teacher, not your burden. Remember, the same people who resent you today might respect you tomorrow, once they've faced their own reflection. Until then, keep moving, because your progress isn't a threat. It's an invitation for others to rise, even if they don't see it yet. It's subtle, but it's everywhere. Every conversation, every suggestion, every "you should try this." Someone is always selling something. Not always for money. Sometimes it's approval, validation, or control. A friend might sell you comfort by telling you what you want to hear. A colleague might sell an idea that benefits them more than it helps you. And sometimes people sell you their version of reality just to make their own beliefs feel right. It's not manipulation. It's human nature. We are all, in one way or another, trying to influence the world around us. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," meaning whatever you allow in, whatever voices you listen to, slowly shapes you. If you're not careful, the world will paint over your original colors. That's why awareness is power. Once you realize that every interaction carries intent, you stop being unconsciously pulled by other people's motives. You begin to think, why are they telling me this? What do they gain? Do I truly believe this, or was it sold to me? This isn't about becoming suspicious or cynical. It's about staying awake. There's nothing wrong with taking advice or accepting help, but you must filter it through your own judgment. The more conscious you become of hidden influence, the less easily you're swayed. You'll start noticing patterns. The coworker who only supports your ideas when it benefits their image. The friend who compliments you right before asking for something. The ad that disguises pressure as empowerment. The Stoics would say, guard your mind as you would guard a fortress, because the real battle isn't for your attention, it's for your direction. Once you see that everyone, knowingly or not, is selling something, you gain the freedom to decide what you'll buy into. You can stay kind, open, and generous without being naive. The moment you learn this lesson, life becomes quieter. You start thinking for yourself, moving with intention, and protecting your peace. Words are light. They move fast, disappear quickly, and sound beautiful. But actions leave footprints. Every person you meet is telling you who they are through what they repeatedly do. The problem is, most of us don't want to believe them. We excuse red flags. We interpret inconsistency as, they're just busy. We romanticize potential instead of recognizing patterns. But reality doesn't lie. If someone shows you that they're unreliable, that they gossip, that they disrespect others, believe that. If someone repeatedly chooses convenience over loyalty, that is their truth. We often get hurt not because people fool us, but because we fool ourselves into thinking they'll change. Hope is beautiful, but it shouldn't blind you. The Stoics didn't waste time wishing people were different. They focused on what is. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about accepting human nature, understanding that people act according to their character and conditioning, not our expectations.
That's not pessimism. It's protection. When you see people as they are, you stop trying to force what they're not ready to be. You start responding wisely instead of reacting emotionally. Pay attention to patterns, not promises. A single mistake can be forgiven. A repeated habit is a message. Listen to what consistency is trying to tell you. True self-respect means walking away from people who keep showing you the same truth. It means valuing peace over potential, reality over fantasy. People will always reveal themselves. It's up to you whether you believe them the first time or after the 10th. The human mind loves comfort. It tells you, rest here, you've done enough, don't risk it. But that voice isn't protecting your potential, it's protecting your routine. Growth begins at the edge of discomfort. Every time you choose challenge over ease, you expand your capacity for life. Think about your biggest turning points. They rarely came when life was easy. They came after rejection, uncertainty, exhaustion. That's where growth hides, in the resistance. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, at dawn when you struggle to rise, remember your purpose as a human being. He knew that discipline was not about punishment, it was about aligning with meaning. Comfort feels safe, but it slowly dulls the spirit. It convinces you that stability equals happiness, but deep down you crave evolution, not ease. Every time you step beyond what's familiar, taking a risk, learning a new skill, speaking an uncomfortable truth, you strengthen your mind like a muscle. Discomfort isn't a signal to retreat, it's proof that you're expanding. The Stoics trained themselves to endure discomfort with grace. They understood that pain wasn't the enemy, it was the sculptor. Ask yourself, are you choosing comfort that keeps you the same, or discomfort that shapes you into something greater? Growth will never feel convenient, but one day you'll look back at the hard seasons and realize they were the reason you became unshakable. It sounds harsh, but it's the most freeing truth there is. One day, all of this, every worry, every argument, every temporary failure, will fade. We live like time is infinite, but it isn't, and that's exactly why life matters. The Stoics practiced a reflection called memento mori, remember you will die. Not to be morbid, but to be mindful. Because when you remember that time is limited, your priorities rearrange themselves. Suddenly, petty things lose their weight. You stop wasting hours in comparison or resentment. You start caring deeply about what actually matters: kindness, purpose, presence, love. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And you can only do that when you stop living for approval and start living with intention. Mortality isn't the end. It's the reminder that this moment is the only thing you truly own. Every sunrise, every conversation, every small act of courage, it all counts. So when you catch yourself stressing over what someone said online or replaying an argument that won't matter next year, pause. Take a breath. Remember, you're not here forever. That's not something to fear. That's something to honor. Let that awareness make you gentler,
more grateful, more alive. Because in the end, the goal isn't to avoid death, it's to live so completely that when the time comes, you have nothing left unlived.